Hi, Chris Kenworthy here with Mastering Color Grading in After Effects, and we're going to look in more detail at working with shadows, highlights and midtones. In this clip you can see we have an image of a cream tea, which is very beautiful, but the shadows may be too dark for this sort of image. It almost looks like a horror movie rather than an image of a cream tea. Although I like the image, let's imagine this was being used in an advertisement, you would almost certainly have to lift those shadows. First of all, let's recap what we normally do, because when we go to the Master tab and we lower the pedestal, then lift the gain and play with the gamma, we're trying to stretch the image as much as we can between 0 and 100. We're going to do that stretching in the shadows, midtones and highlights. I'll just reset all again, go down to the shadows, and there's no point in dragging the pedestal down because we're already just about on that line, but let me lift the gain of the shadows. As you can see, that brightens those shadows considerably. I might even have a go with the gamma as well, just stretch that up a little. So that's the shadows done. You can already see there's a considerable difference between the original source and the result. Let's go to the midtones. And again, we're trying to stretch out just this section. So to do that, we lower the pedestal of the midtones and we raise the gain of the midtones. And you can see what that's doing is really enriching the color in the midtone area. Or the jam and the coffee are becoming more saturated in their color, hopefully without introducing too much contrast. Just look at the original, not as colorful, and this. Now we'll go to the highlights, and once again repeat the process that we always do of lowering the pedestal. And if you glance over at the waveform, you'll see that now gives us a lot of headroom to increase the gain up to nearly 100. And what that's doing is introducing some nice sharp contrast in the highlight area. So the cream, if you look at the result, the cream always looked quite good, and by working with the highlights we keep that nice contrasty look and get some pleasant color appearing in the darker areas of it. So if we look at the overall image, it's still a little too dark in the shadows, but by working with these individual areas of shadows, midtones and highlights, we've stretched each area as much as we can. So now when we go into the Master tab, any changes we make here will be a little more successful. I'm just going to lift the gamma there, and those shadows rise nicely without damaging the rest of the image too much. Just pull the gain down a little, pedestal will leave where it is. I suppose we might want to raise that a tiny bit. There we go. Now looking at that, I still think those shadows might be a bit too dark. Let's look at the original source. They were very dark there. Look at that now, it's a bit brighter. In fact, that might be just right. If you do want to make more changes, you can go back in to the shadows there and just raise the gamma. That is better. As you can see, color correction is not a science, it's an art, and every tiny adjustment you make affects everything else. There are no hard and fast rules, but if you follow this pattern of going to shadows and spreading them out, going to midtones, spreading them out, going to highlights and spreading them out, you've got the best possible starting point for creating the image you want. If you look at our source, which was very dark and didn't have as much color as we wanted, and then you look at our result, that's bright and sunny and colorful. In the next lesson, we're going to move away from the RGB tab and start working with curves to make quick changes to images.